Hello, my friends. This is Andy coming to you from Yorba Linda, and this is an important video because I've been racking my brains. I've talked to so many people about this and trying to figure out why it is Yorba Linda Moms has become a hate group over the last several years. It may have been before I became aware of it, but in particular over the last 5 or 6 years, why it has come to a point where it's simply a place where Esther Kim and Bonnie Conte can spew lies about community members, about school board members, about the police in our community, and how it came to this. It's no longer a place for moms to get ideas on what to do with their families. It's now become a place where they are trying to do whatever they can to destroy people's lives and create narratives out of complete lies, or take an actual story and then change it so that it gives the appearance of something other than what it really is. And so in this episode, where I'm going to give you the reason why Yorba Linda Moms is who they are, is because of a comment that was sent to me from Esther Kim in another post. I believe it's from Yorba Linda Moms, where it kind of explains everything and what it is you need to understand about how they got here, or how we got here. And that is that there's a hatred for Christians and conservatives, but also how they got to a place where they lost their moral compass. And so I want you to understand that this isn't a Christian recording as far as it stands from what I'm trying to say here. I actually have to bring up the Bible and what God truly means in some of these verses, one of them that Esther Kim brought up. But I think it's important to understand how when you get away from morality and have no moral compass, and essentially that's the goal, is to push everyone away in Yorba Linda from a moral compass, is that's how we get to a place that Yorba Linda Moms has become a hate group. When you really want people to believe that this country was not built from a Judeo-Christian place, then you can then begin to say that America is horrible. You can then begin to say that the founding fathers were racist. You can then create this narrative that leads to everything that they want to teach in our schools about people are either oppressed or oppressors, or people are victims that are of color, and anybody that white is a horrible white nationalist. And the only way you get there is by the way that Esther Kim has gotten here and what she put in her comment that I'm going to show you in just a minute. And whether you're atheist, whether you're another faith, maybe you're agnostic, what the founding fathers understood, and this is written in history and written in their own words and given on speeches during the writing of the Constitution and during that whole process, is that even those that were not of faith knew that there had to be a moral compass, that God had to be present. And that's why God is invoked in many of the founding documents. That needed to happen, and that needed to be maintained for there to be a country that could continue to exist under a constitutional republic. Remember, it's not a democracy. The country is a constitutional republic, and the only way that it survives is through a moral compass, namely God and the Bible. And so let me go ahead and go to my screen again, and I'm going to show you the comment in the way that it was sent to me. And I'm going to read it through just a little bit at a time and not all the way through, and kind of explain what's happening in this particular comment from Esther Kim and why I believe I've stumbled upon through this comment why Yorba Linda Moms has become a hate group, because we have two people that run it who have no moral compass. And we're going to be able to read that through this comment of Esther Kim's. So, Worthy Majority had apparently sent a a private message to Esther Kim with the verse that I'm going to refer to in just a minute. And this is Esther Kim's response to that verse that she sent, because what I believe where the majority was trying to tell her is that our job is to protect children. Now, that really is not the context of the verse, even though it sounds like it at first. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I understand where the majority may have been doing. I don't know the context of the entire discussion. But how Esther Kim responds to it tells me that she surely does not understand the verse and what God is trying to say. And so here is her the first part of her response. And she says, worthy majority, you literally picked the worst quote from the Bible. Now, I don't know how there's no worst. It's just a quote from the Bible. The worst quote from the Bible, and sent that to me in a DM. And then she quotes the verse, and it says, but whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him to have a heavy millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. And then she goes on to say, thank you for admitting that you think this way and clung to this quote so that people can see where your head is at. And so coming back to my camera, that is not what the verse, I don't know what she's talking about. But I understand that somebody that doesn't understand the Bible would say that, but she will go on to later on to say that she's read the Bible and that her dad was a pastor. So, but here's the problem with this quote and how Esther Kim defines it as the worst quote in the Bible, and that she takes it completely out of understanding and context in the way that God meant for this to be used. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Matthew 18:6 and just read it one more time and kind of go through it just a little bit. And just for you to, and those of you that may be agnostic and atheists that are still watching, and you should, because I want to explain this a little bit. And this is how things can be used to attack Christians, because people don't understand and don't read the entire Bible. Now, the entire Bible, which I'll explain later on, is from God, from Genesis all the way to Revelation. And there's so much in it and so much important things in it that you need to learn how to read the Bible properly. So going back to the verse, in Matthew 18:6, it says, but whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin. Now, just understanding that first line, what you need to know is that God isn't talking about babies, because he says, who believe in me to sin. Now, nobody is going to be able to convince anybody that babies believe in anything other than feed me and change my diaper. Babies, that's all they know. I've had 6 of them, and I know when they're babies that's all they understand. So God isn't talking about little ones in the sense of babies. He's talking about new believers. Again, out of context, it sounds, when you just use this one verse by itself, there's people who would not have that understanding, that in the entire book of Matthew, as you read it, you will understand that he's talking about new believers, young believers in mind, not necessarily in an age. So a young believer could be somebody that's 20. It could be somebody that's middle-aged. It can be somebody that's 86. That if they were atheist or agnostic or walking the fence for a long period of time, if they then give their lives to Jesus Christ and become born again, that at that point, usually, they're little ones, new believers. So what he's saying here is, but whoever causes, so whoever is the person who causes somebody who is a new believer to lose their faith or to waver from their faith or to divert from their faith, that at one point they believe in Jesus, in the Trinity, God, the Holy Spirit, in Jesus, that then he goes on to say, it would be better for him that a heavy millstone be hung around his neck and that he be drowned in the depths of the sea. What Esther Kim fails to do is have critical thinking. And perhaps that's the reason why she hates the fact that we want to teach children how to critically think and actually know how to read and understand what it is they're reading, because Esther Kim obviously does not. Because she's thinking that this is calling Christians to take somebody who, I believe in her eye, that teaches kids about LGBTQ, for instance, or allows men to go into the girls' bathroom, that she thinks that now a Christian would be called to hang a millstone around their neck and go to the end of Huntington Beach Pier and throw them off. That's not what this is saying. If you understand common English when you're reading, this is a translation from an ancient script, that in the translation, if you just read the English words, it says, "It is better for him that a heavy millstone be hung around his neck and that he be drowned in the depths of the sea than what the consequences are actually going to be." It's not commanding anybody to harm anybody. It's not telling a Christian to take action against somebody who causes a little one to stumble. It is simply saying that it would be better for them than what it is they're going to get when they go to hell, when they burn in hell for eternity. The drowning would be better, is what this is trying to say. And so this is what makes this comment so interesting, is because then she goes on to say, let's go down to let's see, after it says, where it starts with, "I read the Bible a lot growing up. My dad was actually ordained as a pastor, and I never remembered seeing this quote before you shared it with me." Okay. So these are some of the things that I have problems with, because Esther Kim does this kind of thing all the time. If you were to pay attention, and again, unfortunately, I get a number of screenshots of her comments, and she goes on and on about nonsense all the time, and then she makes claims about all sorts of subject matter. And that, if you were to believe her, you would believe that she's an astronaut, that she's a scientist, that she's a world-leading researcher, when in fact, she's none of those things. But, it's really hard to believe. How is it possible that you've read the Bible, as she claims, and that her dad is a pastor, and yet doesn't know one of the, it's not probably the most popular verse in the Bible, even to those that even have never read the Bible. They've heard somebody mention it, or it's been referenced in other things, that it's really hard to believe that she's done any of those things. Because then she says she's never remembered it. Because it's not like with me, when I was walking around as a Christian for many years, the Bible came to life when I actually, after 20 years, actually fell to my knees, asked for forgiveness, and repented. That then I walk into Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and Pastor Jack Hibbs begins to speak, and I go, wow, I've never heard a message about this part of the Bible in that way, that I could truly understand what is being said. Now, there's times where I've heard what he's talking about before, so I've heard it before, but it never came to life. And so there is that you could read through the Bible and you're just reading the words, but you're not really understanding all the nuances about it and the history of it, or the true meaning of the Greek words or the Aramaic words that were involved in the origination of the script. That also adds more context to it. But to say that you've read the Bible and that you also have a dad who's a pastor, but yet you've never heard this, causes me to call into question her truthfulness in all this. All right, so now let's go to the next part. This is on the right-hand side. It says, that quote is about tying a rock by rope to someone's neck and drowning them in the sea. No, it's not. It's not. As I said before, it's not. God is saying it would be worse, or it would be better if that happened to them than what's going to happen to them. So it's not telling anybody to tie a rope around anybody's neck and drown them. I never cared about those parts of the Bible, and always focused more on the parts that talked about loving others and taking care of the meek. Coming back to my camera. So, of course, both of those things are not true. That's not what the verse is calling people to do, as I've said now probably 3 or 4 times. I just want to make sure that this is abundantly clear. But the Bible has never said, Jesus never said, God never said that that others should lovingly take care of the meek. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. It's calling those of strength, men of strength, like Moses, like King David, like others that are of virtue and strength and fearlessness and courage, to also be meek. When he's talking about meek in the Bible, he's telling us that we need to be meek in the sense that we need to be understanding, we need to be caring, we need to be loving, first with our family, and then with our Christian community, and then to those in the world around us, which we see all the time. It's similar to my thoughts, which I've given out several times, and I'll just do it again, is that I don't hate Esther Kim. I don't hate Bonnie Conte. I don't hate transgender men who go into the bathrooms with our girls, in the sense that I will ask for their destruction or tell them to have a rope hung around their neck and throw it into the sea. No, I hate what they're doing. I hate their actions. I hate their immorality. And the meekness comes in is if they were to walk away from those thoughts. If Esther Kim were to walk into Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, or East Anaheim, where I go to church, both of them, and accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, my meekness would be then to guide her, and not probably me personally, but my wife and I would be there for her. And our meekness, our love for her, changing her way or changing directions or walking from darkness into light, that the meekness would cause us to then say, welcome to the family. And how can I help you? What is it you need help in understanding? I understand that you had this understanding of this particular part of the Bible. Do you need help understanding what it actually says? Or can I take you to somebody that can give you more context and more understanding of what God is trying to say here? That's where the meekness comes in. But to say that the Bible calls for us to care for the meek, it doesn't say that. Now, the poor and for men to take care of their wives and care for them and to love them as Jesus loved the church, yes, that is calling us to show meekness in that way. So again, another misguided understanding of what it is that God has actually called us to do. So back to my screen, and I'll continue. I have a hard time understanding that what has been happening lately with Christianity, because I grew up Christian and always felt it led people to act with more integrity, but I feel it has strayed really far from that for a lot of people. No, there are pastors that have gone away from the Bible. One of the reasons I left a church that I was at to go to Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills in East Anaheim was because they weren't teaching the Bible. They were doing what Esther Kim does, and that is cut out certain parts of the Bible or leave out certain parts of the Bible because it may have hurt somebody's feelings, or to tell somebody that what they're doing is a sin would be harmful to them, or it is violent, as we've heard, or it is racist to tell somebody that they just simply need to work harder, that they're not oppressed, that's a lie, and to tell people that that's a lie. What churches have done, many of them, and pastors have done, and quite possibly if Esther Kim's dad was a pastor, what he was also doing was leaving out those things that are really important on purpose, and only going to the ones where Jesus talked about loving your neighbor. And so maybe that's the only verse. You cut out all the other parts of the Bible and say, love your neighbor. Well, what does it exactly say about loving, about having love for somebody? And having love for somebody is letting them know what sins that they may actually be guilty of, which will lead them to a place where it would be better to be drowned with a millstone around your neck than it would be to live in an eternity in hell. So going back to my screen, we got Proverbs 6:16 through 19 that says, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, as we've seen in these hate groups, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Now, this particular set of verses, Proverbs 6:16 through 19, doesn't speak to what's happening in Yorba Linda Moms. I don't know what else does. They have lying tongues because we've seen them create a narrative out of this supposed El Dorado student who was chased by ICE and tackled and a gun pointed. That was a complete lie. That's a lying tongue, and it's lying fingertips on the keyboard. Hands that shed innocent blood, and this could lead to hands that lead to shedding of innocent blood if you just continue with this hate. Because we've seen it in Minnesota, we've seen it in at the border, we've seen it all over the United States, where these hands of lying and typing and putting it on post has led to the shedding of innocent blood. We've seen it. A heart that devises wicked schemes. We've seen the wicked schemes of writing letters about Leandra Blades and sending them out to the community that's in her area where people would be voting. That was a scheme to try to get people to believe that she was something that she's not. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. We've seen that when they, and I'm just going to use this as an example, but walking for school board, people that are running for certain areas of school boards, where they quickly rushed into evil, knocking on doors and telling lies about their opponent. A false witness who pours out lies, same as a lying tongue, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. That's exactly what Yorba Linda Moms does. It stirs up conflict and then blames us for the conflict. So it stirs up conflict that ICE is chasing down an El Dorado student, that Leandra is an exsurrectionist. Exsurrectionist. I don't know. I can't say that word right now. That she's a murderer. That Dr. Chernus is evil and tearing down the schools and firing people when he actually wasn't. And then they put that up as a real story and as fact. And then when we come in and say none of that is true, here are the facts. Here is an example of the truth. Here is the evidence that what they're doing is lying. Then they want to tell people that we are hateful people, that we are somehow causing strife in the community. And so it is the person who stirs up conflict in the community that is the one who's actually doing it, and that would be Yorba Linda Moms. Let's go back to my screen. I'm going to give you some more sins that God finds abhorrent, and these are important because these are the things that we find happening in our school district. We have pride and arrogance. That would be the California Teachers Association and many of their followers. Deception and lying, again, including false testimony. Violence and murder. So any kind of violence and murder that comes from such lies would be included in that. Premeditated evil and scheming, stirring up division and conflict, idolatry and false worship, injustice and exploitation, especially the vulnerable, sexual sins that violate God's design and holiness and relationship. So understanding that when you're leading somebody away from God, a little one, as God puts it, anybody that's new in their faith, and they do that in the schools by telling them that Christians are Christian nationalists, and they're saying it in a way that sounds bad, or they are saying that it's the Christians who, because they want parent rights, that means they hate you. That when you put pornography in the schools so that you create an environment that will cause the young ones to stumble into sexual sin, that is all horrible. That is what God is talking about when he's speaking in that when you cause young ones or little ones to stumble, that is what they're doing, is by putting sexualization into our schools through sex education and these books in the libraries, is that you're causing them to stumble. And then it leads to all these other things, deception and lying and pride and arrogance, that we as parents, whether you're a Christian or not, you could just be a good atheist parent who doesn't want their children sexualized. Again, the school boards and the teachers and the librarians should not be causing even the atheist kid to get away from a moral compass. That's important to a lot of people, not just Christians. And so, in keeping this short, because I had a lot more that I really thought that I would go into, but I thought I would just keep it focused on this. When you're thinking about Yorba Linda moms and what it is they are doing, it is abhorrent. And that is why it needs to be discussed so much. That is why I shared their own words to show you what it is they in fact are doing, and is it extremely important for you to understand. And those of you that are still in Yorba Linda moms that send me the screenshots, I thank you. I appreciate you. They need to be exposed for what it is they're doing, because they not only do it there, but they do it in PYL Buzz. They do it on X. They do it on a whole number of other type of platforms. But it seems to really stem from this group run by these two women who really have lost their way and have no moral compass. So I hope this helps you understand a little bit. I know I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what's going on. How is it possible that you have something that's called Yorba Linda Moms actually doing everything they can that no normal mom would do? Normal mom would be fighting for men to get into the girls' restrooms of their daughters, to compete against their girls in sports where they can be injured and hurt, or even just simply take away a place, whether it's first place, second place, or third place. That no mom that I know in my circle would do that on purpose. None of it makes any sense. That they would want their children sexualized from elementary school and middle school and up to high school. That no actual parent who loves their children would want any of that done. But that is what Yorba Linda Moms has turned into. That's what PYL Buzz does on a daily basis. So I hope this helps, my friends, and share this out to other people that need to hear it. God bless you guys. Love you. Take care. I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.